This whole concept of people calling Plecos peaceful is a lie. Plecos are only peaceful with other fish like tetras or cichlids or whatever. With other Plecos, they are very aggressive, especially during spawning season. Be very cautious when you have a group Pleco tank, and please don't do one Pleco of each species. That's the stupidest thing in the world. You are not doing anybody a service. If you are gonna keep Zebra Plecos, keep a group. Do not get one. Do not get two. Do not get three. I mean, get them individually if you want, but go in with the plan of having a group tank and spawning these fish, because they are Schedule 3, they are endangered, they do need to be preserved, they do need to be spawned. And if you are not experienced with Plecos, don't start getting a Zebra Pleco. You are going to lose your money, you are going to be unhappy, you are going to be taking one more fish out of the gene pool. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Malik at Malik's Water Garden, and this is part 2 of how to Zebra Pleco general remarks. In this video, we're going to cover some basic information on how what you can do to get your fish to spawn, why your fish might not be spawning, and all that good stuff, as well as furniture and other information. So please stay tuned till the end, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe down below and hit that notification icon. We're at 350 subscribers right now, and that's amazing. I love you all for doing that. Thank you so much, everybody that has subscribed. You guys are all awesome. The channel's growing really fast, so thank you so much. Without further ado, let's get to this video. So please watch till the end. If you have a hard time breeding your fish, there might be things that you are doing that are making the fish not wanting to spawn. One of the main reasons why your Zebra Plecos are not spawning is because they're not at spawning age. Zebra Plecos take about 3 to 3.5 years to become sexually mature, and they will not spawn before that. So they would be about 3 inches to 2.5 to 3 inches long before they become sexually mature, and at least 3 years of age. So therefore, your fish would not spawn for a while. You would buy the fish at about a year old, and you would have to wait another 2 years for this fish to spawn. So this is one of the main reasons why you have not gotten your fish to spawn yet, is because 1, they are not ready to spawn yet because they are not sexually mature. 2, the fish might not spawn yet because it is not spawning season yet. Okay, these animals spawn seasonally, and they are following whatever rhythm that they have going on inside their bodies. And for some reason, they have been spawning, as far as I understand, and everybody else I've talked to, January to September is a spawning season. So if it's not between those times, their chances are they're not going to be spawning for you. So if you're trying to spawn them in October, good luck. Okay, so that's another thing. I've really noticed this. They really like clean water, well oxygenated clean water. The flow needs to be moderately high. My fish don't seem to mind low flow. I do have power heads in all my tanks, but when they do get clogged up and slow down or stop working for between a water change, the fish don't seem to care. Everything is fine. They've spawned, they do natural behavior. I don't lose fish. Nothing happens any differently than it does normally. So they don't seem to mind not having the flow, but the high oxygen concentration is definitely a must, especially because the water is quite warm. The saturated oxygen level in the water when it's at that temperature is low, so you definitely need to make sure that the tank has a very high oxygen concentration. So to remedy that, what I do is I have a Madden filter on one side pushing in a lot of water and oxygen. It's running on my central air loop. As well, I have a power head on this side, a Penplax a Cascade 610, which pushes the decent amount of flow. I forgot how many, 160 gallons per hour. And it's pushing through the bottom here to give the fish flow exactly where they need it. So if one were to stop or whatever, something were to happen for a few hours, or if the line got disconnected in somehow, or the power got disconnected, or the filter got clogged, the other one is working, so there's a backup. Also, my entire room is heated, so I'm not really worried about a heater malfunction. So the next reason why your fish are not spawning, there might not be enough habitat for them to feel comfortable to spawn. One of the main reasons I have so much hiding places is because Plecos are territorial. They definitely require at least 1 cave per fish. I recommend putting 1.5 caves minimum per number of plecos. So if you have 10 zebra plecos in a tank, you need to have 15 caves. This tank has 17 zebra plecos in total, and I need to have at least 30 hiding places for each fish. Otherwise, I could potentially lose some of my less dominant fish to aggression and fights. So that's something to keep in mind. And coming back to breeding, how that correlates is if the fish does not have enough adequate spawning sites, which are these different cave structures and whatever it is that they feel comfortable to spawn in, they're not going to spawn for you. Okay, so just having your fish and 2 caves or 1 cave and hoping for spawns is very unrealistic. If you have 10 fish, you need to have 15 caves, and try to have different caves. Have caves of different sizes, different lengths, different widths, diameters, different head shapes, different cone shapes, as many different shapes as possible. You can find all this stuff on Amazon. I have other videos about this, so I'm not going to explain this in too much detail. So please go check out those videos and find out what type of caves to use and what type of caves that are available in Amazon and eBay and whatever. That's where I get all my caves, and I'm from angelfins.ca. So that's the cave situation for spawning. The next reason why your fish might not be spawning is because you do not have fish of both sexes. It's very likely that if you only have, let's say, 4 fish, all 4 of your fish are all of the same sex. It's very likely you might have all 4 males or all 4 females. So therefore, in that scenario, there's not going to be any successful spawns. Also, if you only have 3 males and 1 female, the ratio might be a little off and they might not feel comfortable. They are, and in my experience, community spawners or group spawners or colony spawners. So they spawn in groups. Like I've had really good success with a lot of Plecos in groups, as well as in pairs too. Very limited success in pairs. Just in my personal experience with pairs, the aggression cannot be reduced. There's always damages to females. The females get bullied too much if it's just a pair of fish. I've seen all this stuff, not in Zebra Plecos particularly, but in Hypancistrus, where I've only had 2 Hypancistrus, male and a female. So with Zebra Plecos, I highly recommend getting a group of at least 8 fish, if not more. 8 to 12 is a good number to start with. You would need, this is a 40-gallon, this has 15 fish. This is the maximum amount I would recommend, or 17 fish in a 40-gallon, especially if you don't have adequate hiding spaces. But if you do have adequate hiding space and if you want to build it up even another layer or 2, you can double this amount of fish, because what really matters for this fish is the vertical swimming space. So if you can increase this vertical space by adding more structures and more layers, like a condo almost, and maybe fill it up halfway with all different kinds of caves and rock work and whatever, you can actually have 30 to 40 to 50 Zebra Plecos in a tank this size, all breeding and with no problem. I've actually seen it in people's videos and stuff where they can do it, but it all boils down to the amount of hiding places you have. Now, in North America, we like to keep the groups to about 10 to 15, 15 being the highest, and 10 being somewhat of a normal number, and 6 to 8 being the lowest. I have not seen any successful breeder with a group of Zebra Plecos that is less than 6 or 8 fish, and that's even very rare. Usually it's about 8 to 10 fish to 15 fish in North America. Okay, in Europe and in Asia, they do push that, and I've seen where they have a lot more fish in tanks, where they have a lot more structure, and they're very successful. Europeans are really good at breeding fish, so I highly believe that this is possible, but I personally wouldn't risk it. In this tank, I've actually had 25, about 35 Hypancistrus at one point. In the past, there's videos of them in the same tank, but it was very short period when I was going through a situation in the tank where one of my tanks ate and I had to move all the fish into this tank with these Zebra Plecos. So I had most of my valuable fish in this tank at the same time, about 35 of them, and they were all fine. There was no issues of aggression, so that was good. But I do not recommend that long term, especially if you live in North America and we have more space here and more tanks and tanks are not expensive. Like I paid $40 for this tank. Each of these fish are like about 250, $300. So one fish can buy me 3 to 4 tanks, right? Realistically. So I just need to not have one less fish and have 3 more tanks. If I wanted to have more fish, I just have to buy more tanks. That's my recommendation. They're expensive fish, so spend the money and have proper housing for them. Feeding, unlike popular opinion, many zebra loricariids, X-zebra is more of carnivore than algae eater. This is backed up by small lighting tooth mouth and indicates it is a poor algae eater. See, like the mouth structure, I will go back and show you that again. They do not eat algae. This says provide mainly meaty foods such as bloodworms and even brine shrimp. I don't feed brine shrimp or bloodworms frozen. It's garbage. So therefore, I don't have experience with it. But other breeders have reported that the bloodworms do have stuff that irritates the mouth structures of Hypancistrus, and it could cause death. So therefore, I do not recommend bloodworms. Not a good food. Also, I do not recommend any type of frozen food as a long-term food source, simply because frozen food has very little nutrition. Check the back of the packaging. Protein content is under 5%. These animals need protein that is above 50%. Frozen bloodworms or frozen shrimp, garbage. Do not feed. I do not feed any of that stuff to my fish. I will highlight all the foods, so look at that stuff of what I feed and try to feed a prepared diet specifically designed for Hypancistrus. There's a lot of food available. Your fish are very expensive, so therefore feed them the most expensive food that you can find and afford, because they do deserve it. Simply because you are spending money to keep these fish anyways. Should be your most expensive, or one of the most expensive things that you own in your fish collection. So why not feed them the best food that money can buy them, right? And then these foods are not much more expensive than some of the commercially available foods. And the one thing I do recommend, I have noticed why I recommend these expensive brands of food, is you only have to feed a little bit of it compared to a lot more with the cheaper food. If you're feeding flake food, for example, you have to dump so much more as to get the same amount of food value as to feed them something that has higher nutrition. So that is a very big plus as well. So I don't have to do as much water changes and all that. Tank stays clean, all that stuff. I really want to add one thing quickly here. As far as decorations, the caves are definitely a must. You need to have structure for your fish to hide on. Aside from the caves, you do need water movement. So a power head or some type of water generating, a movement generating device, a canister filter, pushing flow, something is definitely a plus for that purpose. You need to oxygenate the water because the temperature is high, and they do come from highly oxygenated water, so the oxygen saturation in the high temperature is already a little bit lower than lower temperatures, so you need to have some form of oxygenating the water, like an air stone or some type of bubbling device, or a Madden filter in my case with a air driven Madden. So aside from those main things, everything else is pretty much optional at that point. The sand, definitely optional, highly recommended. A thin layer of sand is good because the fish definitely enjoy it, but it's a little harder to take care of, to keep clean, so that's something personal choice. I like sand because it definitely adds more of a biosphere, a biological area where more bacteria can colonize, as well as my plants can grow. I like having plants in all my Hypancistrus, in all my fish tanks in general, because it helps me maintain a lower nitrate content between water changes. This tank has a nitrate content of under 10 parts per million from one water change to the other water change. That's because of the plant content as well as increased water changes. So that's something to consider. The one downside to having a sand bed is you can have anaerobic pockets. if your sand bed is more than 2.5 to 3 inches. So you really have to maintain your sand bed by getting your hands in there, digging around, making sure there are no gas pockets being built, because if you do have a gas pocket and it does open up, you will gas your fish. So you can kill all the fish in the tank by having a gas pocket. So having sand, that's the downside. You have to maintain it. With these tanks, because the sand bed is not too tall, it's only about 2 inches of sand. It's shorter in the front, it's about 2 inches in the back, and there's a lot of plants growing in here. There's a lot of plant roots inside the sand. So because of that, it does not create anaerobic pockets and gas pockets, because the plant roots do suck up a lot of that excess nutrients or whatever that can build up. Another thing you can use in your sand bed, and I highly recommend this if you are going to have sand or any type of substrate in your tank, is Malaysian trumpet snails. This tank has over several hundred Malaysian trumpet snails, almost at an infestation level. But if I were to film this tank, you will not see any of them because they live inside the sand bed. If I were to drop some food, and I will show you some B-roll footage where they are congregated up on the sand bed eating some of the leftover food, they definitely do a really good job keeping the sand bed clean, and they eat all the leftover food. So if you are looking at your fish tank during, let's say, a midday time when the lights are on and whatever, and you're seeing more than a few Malaysian trumpet snails on your sand or in your tank moving around, the reason for that is because you are feeding a little bit too much. So reduce your feeding by about 25% to 50% daily, and then your Malaysian trumpet snail population will self-balance itself. You don't have to trap them, you don't have to remove them, you don't have to do anything to manually do anything. Just reduce the feeding by 25 to 50%. But you can use them to keep your sand beds clean. So that's what I use to keep my sand beds clean. That's about it. Like, they're very easy fish. Despite what everybody tells you, they're one of the easiest fish to keep. They're one of the easiest fish to breed. The reason they're so expensive is because they're Schedule 3, they're endangered. They could be going extinct in the wild in the coming years. So that's one of the main reasons why they are restricted in sales and whatever. But the reason they're so expensive is because of that, as well as they take really long time to mature, coming to sexual maturity, and even at that time, the amount of clutches each fish lays is very small. Each female might lay 7 to 10 eggs, and at most the biggest females will lay up to 15, but those are very rare and they have to be very big to get to that size of egg laying. So young females will probably be only laying 7 to 10 eggs. Decent clutches are about 7, 8, 9. If you're getting a clutch of 7 fish, you're doing well. So that's where the prices are still so high, and I don't see the prices going down anytime soon. They're gonna stay at about $100 an inch per inch of fish, and that's my prediction is that's gonna be the price for indefinitely, if not going higher. And they are slow growing fish, and these fish in here almost a year, like not a year, but about 8, 9, 10 months, 8 months now, 9 months old now, and they're little over an inch and a quarter. Very slow growing, very, 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 very slow growing. These fish in here, about 2 years and change, and little over 2 inches, 2 and a quarter. You know, some of them are 2.5 inches. A few that are sexually mature, that are a little bit older. I have a female that's about a little 2.5 inches or so. She's almost 3 years now, and she's getting sexually mature, so she will start spawning next year. So they're very slow growing. It's a huge investment, and the prices are not going to go down anytime soon. And on Planet Catfish, I'm just going to read this really quickly. It says furniture. The Rio Single is full of rocks of many sizes with small fine sand between them. So rocks and sand. Zebra is collected in deeper mid-water channels where it's hidden in crevices, so it hides in caves. The ideal zebra tank would be set up with much differently than what we picture as the typical South American biotope. The tank should resemble a rocky riffle area. See? Rocky riffle area. Stream with a jumble of rounded rocks and good water movement. Provide lots of small caves, as the fish normally lives and spawns in the caves and cracks of rocks. The rocks should be assembled in a haphazard fashion to create lots of crevices. So basically a lot of hiding places, whatever, smooth white sand. Peaceful, but choose tank mates wisely. This whole concept of people calling Plecos peaceful is a lie. Plecos are only peaceful with other fish, like tetras or cichlids or whatever. With other Plecos, they are very aggressive, especially during spawning season. Be very cautious when you have a group Pleco tank. And please don't do one Pleco of each species. That's the stupidest thing in the world. You are not doing anybody a service. If you are going to keep Zebra Plecos, keep a group. Do not get one, do not get two, do not get three. I mean, get them individually if you want, but go in with the plan of having a group tank and spawning these fish, because they are Schedule 3, they are endangered, they do need to be preserved, they do need to be spawned. And if you are not experienced with Plecos, don't start getting a Zebra Pleco. You are going to lose your money, you are going to be unhappy, you are going to be taking one more fish out of the gene pool. So start with something easier, some of the smaller Hypancistrus that are a little bit cheaper. You can also start with like Super Reds or any other types of Plecos that are more commonly available but are also a little bit more pricier. Almost the same care and maintenance, almost the same parameters, similar feeding requirements for all the Hypancistrus. So yeah, that's it. That's the update. That's what I have for you guys. Let's see if I missed anything. Breeding, raise temperature to at least 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and ensure the tank is well aerated and heavily filtered. A tank turnover rate of 6 times an hour and not excessive. So we'll get to this part when we come to the breeding video. Stay tuned for that. As always, I thank you for your support. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for subscribing. 300 subscribers is a really big milestone. All of you guys have subscribed this year. It's only been 3 months this year, and I've gotten so many subscribers this year. I started this year with like 135 subscribers. As always, thank you so much. I love you all. See you on the next video. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe down below, and please hit that notification icon so you get updated when next video get uploaded. And as always, thank you for your support. I love you all. God bless.